Hello my friends, it's Gabriel with the Last Huntsman channel here, and today I'm doing another knife review. I have, and I'm pretty excited to test this one out quite a bit, the Lionsteel T6 and CPM 3V. Let's check this knife out. So another thing to make mention of too is I've seen several places to get the Lionsteel T6. The best place I've found to get it is Blade HQ, and no, I'm not sponsored by them or anything like that, but I have to kind of give a shout out to them because they had this for the best price. And you know, when I ordered it, I had a little bit of issues with my order, but they came through pretty good. But they have great customer service, so you know, I'm gonna have to just shout out to them just because Blade HQ had this for probably the best price that I've seen. All right, so we're gonna just kind of go on an overview here of the Lionsteel T6. It's roughly, as the name implies, a 6-inch blade. It has a very wide, broad blade, which I like, and when I show some comparative options, you'll see. Now, one of the things that Lionsteel is kind of really known for, and this knife has it, is as you can see, the tang is actually enclosed on the front side into the micarta, which I'm still kind of debating whether or not I actually like that, but I will have to give them kudos. That is very good engineering to get that micarta cut just so perfectly where the tang actually fits into there. It does kind of, I guess I'll discuss the ergonomics later, but it's roughly 3/16 thick, wide, broad blade. And what's also cool about the Lionsteel T6 is it comes with a pretty nice Kydex sheath with a kind of a molly backer on it. I just throw these molly loops through my belt, so I usually just carry it on my belt anyways. But it is cool that it has that option. It did also have a retaining strap here, but it just was a snap-on and I took it off because I didn't really feel like it needed it. All right, so here's some knives to kind of compare the Lionsteel T6 to. As you see, all these are kind of right around the 6-inch blade mark. I'm not getting too specific with details here, but we got the Tops Silent Hero, the Reef Knives F6, and the SE6. And so as you can see, it's kind of a very similar size to all of these, which in my opinion, this is kind of my favorite survival knife size. Much bigger than this, it kind of gets awkward to carry on your belt, but much smaller, than it kind of starts to lack in some of the survival task. But you can also see just how broad that blade is, which I like that quite a bit. I think that is one of the things that really catches my attention to this knife, other than the fact that it's made out of CPM 3V. At the Lionsteel T6, first time out here in the woods with it. Gonna go big or go home type of thing, so I'm gonna do some batoning. Mid-20s out here, cold. Let's beat it up. High saber grind. Seems like it does the trick though. That gets the job done. All right, I'm going to do some more batoning with the Lionsteel T6. Now, this having that high saber grind and that broad blade, my experience has been that high saber grinds usually batons pretty good, and that's going to be the case with this knife too. All right, so another task I'm going to try is I'm going to do some feather sticking. Now, I'm not super familiar with this method of feather sticks, but I've been experimenting with it, and I've actually gotten to where I kind of like it. I usually don't do feather sticks at grade, but I actually feel like I could do them a little better like this, where I just stick the knife into the log instead of trying to work my knife around the piece of wood I'm slicing. I'm getting some pretty good feathers with the Lionsteel T6. All right, Lionsteel T6. I'm gonna try to fell a small tree with it. Now, like I said, this ain't really a super big chopper. But in the medium size range, it has some power behind it. There we go. Lionsteel T6 can get it done. All right, so something else to kind of take note on with the Lionsteel T6 is it has a very rounded spine, and so you're not going to really be able to strike a ferro rod with this. I know I've seen some people say you can. I've already tried it and I haven't had any luck out of it, but I don't really take that as a deal breaker either, because I always carry so many other means to strike a ferro rod anyways. So also kind of take note too, it has that kind of deep swedge there. So I actually think that the kind of audience that they're going for with this knife is a survival tactical knife, which I think for that role it fulfills that very well. All right, task I'm going to do with the Lionsteel T6 is I'm just going to try to make a stake with it. With that broad blade, should be pretty choppy. And I usually use a medium size, large size, or hatchet to make a stake. Of course, you can use the knife itself to kind of finish it off, and now you have a stake. All right, so I know a 6-inch knife is not really much of a chopping knife, but I'm going to just do a little bit more chopping task here. I'm going to just try to take a little chunk off of this stick. With that broad, wide blade and that kind of almost Becker style grip on it. I like it a lot. The grip overall, I like. I'm not so sure if I'm totally sold on the whole fitted micarta in there. I think they could have just did full profile tang instead of this kind of hidden full tang in there and been just fine in my books. But it is kind of a neat twist, if anything, and chops pretty well. Let's kind of test some of the ergonomics. Now, the handle, in my opinion, feels a bit big for my hands. That being said, I got medium-sized hands, but even though it's still a bit big, it fits my hand pretty good overall. It's just kind of it's on the edge of almost being too big. However, that being said, with it being that micarta, you can always just sand that down and kind of reprofile it to your own liking a little bit. That being said, it does fit pretty decent in my hand. And it also gives good, it's not too round. A lot of knife makers like to make handles way too round. This one actually has a lot of good edge alignment and indexing, and we'll test that out a little more when I do kind of the combatives portion with this knife. But it is, with a high saber grind and that broad blade, a very slicey knife. All right, so another test I'm going to do with the Lionsteel T6 is, since this is kind of geared towards being a tactical survival knife, I'm going to do some stabbing and slight tip testing. Not going to get too stupid. I mean, you could break any knife getting too stupid, but this is made out of CPM 3V and it has a pretty decent chunky tip on it, so should be able to hold up. With that deep guard too, your hand is not going to slip forward on it, which I like that quite a bit. A lot of knives I don't think focuses on having a deep guard like that. But it stabs in pretty good as well. And that tip is still just fine. All right, so another task I'm gonna do with the Lionsteel T6 is I'm gonna just do kind of a bit of a combatives little thing, just to kind of see how it feels, make sure it doesn't want to rotate in my hand or something like that, which is common with some knives. Not anything too specific, but let's just test this out. Pretty quick and nimble in hand. Gives me a lot of good edge alignment and indexing for the knife. And actually does a lot of damage when it strikes. But the Lionsteel T6 would be a hell of a combat knife, and I think that's kind of what it's geared towards. However, it's a great survival knife too. I almost forgot too, I gotta test out the attitude readjustment. Now, because this is partially hidden tang, where, you know, the front side's not exposed, there's just this little bit of tang poking out there to pommel. And like I said, I think I would have almost rather have just seen this as like a true full tang, exposed full tang, but it kind of adds to the certain mystique and appeal and Italian engineering here. But let's just test this out. The pommel kind of almost looks like a micro BK7 pommel. So it does some pretty decent damage. Because it's so small, it almost focuses a lot more. So it's not going to do a broader, wide area of damage, and it's probably not going to be the best at crushing things if that's what you're wanting it for. However, for just a pure skull crushing attitude readjustment, it does the trick pretty good. All right, so another task I'm going to try, and this is after using this knife all this time. You can hear that it's still hair shaving sharp, and that is one of the things that I like about CPM 3V. I was kind of a little late to the bandwagon on CPM 3V, which I'm kind of usually am with hype products like a new steel or a new gun or anything like that. I kind of like to just see how it holds up after some time before I jump on. But CPM 3V has really impressed me, and you know, it definitely has some amazing toughness and edge holding retention, and me personally, I've come to almost think that CPM 3V is one of my favorite steels. Like, so, and the Lionsteel T6 actually has done their CPM 3V pretty good from what I can see. All right, my friends, I'm gonna wrap up the overall review on the Lionsteel T6. My overall thoughts is I really like this knife. Enjoy it. The handles are pretty ergonomic, just a tad bit on the big side, but that being said, I got kind of medium hands, so take that as you will. But it still feels very ergonomic. It has great indexing and such. The steel quality, CPM 3V, it's really great out of the box. The Kydex sheath was really good. So, you know, right out of the box, this knife was good to go as is. So if you're wanting something a little bit higher tier, survival, medium-sized fixed blade, the Lionsteel T6 is a very hard option to pass up, and I definitely will keep this knife through my collection and rotation and such. One little qualm that I had, and this can be kind of a hit and miss type of thing, I suppose, but I was not like super impressed with the edge right out of the box. I've had a couple Lionsteels that I've kind of had that same thing, and so I don't think it was dull, but it's just not my kind of edge. So that being said, I usually go through and reprofile a lot of edges on knives anyways, so just take that with a grain of salt. So keep that in mind. With all that being said, be prepared both physically and spiritually. God bless, and carry on.